In a league such as the NBA that is always evolving, always changing, always has many different things being shifted over time, we see the same thing happen with the concept of a third option. Now, the third option in the NBA has changed over the years. In the 2010s, the third option was more than likely a number one option or a high-level number two option on any other team. This is evidenced by the Golden State Warriors when they had Steph, KD, and Clay, or the Miami Heat when they had D. Wade, LeBron, and Bosh, or the Brooklyn Nets when they had Harden, KD, and Kyrie. As you can see, a player like Kyrie, Clay, Chris Bosh would be a high level 2, or even if they were on a low enough team, a number 1 option on any other team in the NBA. But on those teams, they were the third option. Nowadays, though, it's a bit different. These championship caliber teams that have these third options aren't the same caliber of a Klay Thompson, a Chris Bosh, a Kevin Durant. They aren't really on that level. You're more so seeing high-level role players, high-level starters fill in these roles as a third option. Now, before I get too deep in the video, make sure you leave a like on the video and go ahead and subscribe. I know we haven't got through the video, but I promise you're going to like it, and I think you're going to like the rest of the videos on this page as well. But let's get right back into it. Now, before we get too deep in the video, let's kind of define what a third option is and how they're kind of looked at in today's NBA. Now, ideally, a third option isn't the team's third best scorer. They're not even always a team's third best player. They're more so a player who can come in when the first 2 players aren't playing really well, or when they're sitting on the bench, and kind of maintain the level of play. Think about, in a historical context, a Robert Parrish, a James Worthy, a Dennis Rodman, or even recently a Kevin Love, who was a interior force on Minnesota and the best player on that team. But once he got to Cleveland, it was a little bit later in his career, and he switched his game to more of a 3-and-D type of player. And these players are usually the ones who have to kind of realize the balance between personal success and team success. The best third options in the NBA on the best teams don't get as much touches as those better, higher caliber players, but they're still willing to sacrifice those numbers because they know in the end they're going to more than likely be a top team in the NBA. Now, the third option, who is arguably the hottest name in basketball at this point in time, and who a lot of people are saying is the best third option in the entire NBA, is none other than Austin Reeves on the Lakers, who has been one of the hottest names in the NBA since the All-Star break. In 14 games since the All-Star break, he's averaging about 21 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds on an impressive 44, 39, and 90% shooting splits. And in these 14 games, the Lakers have been 11-3 when Austin Reeves scores 25 plus points, which has been done a lot recently, especially with the injury of LeBron and Luka being in and out of lineup and still getting adjusted to LA. Austin Reeves has been a nice little filler for the absence of LeBron and the struggles of Luka. And what makes Austin Reeves stand out is a multitude of things. The first thing is his ability to be a secondary creator when a player like LeBron James sits, as he averages about 28 points, about 9 assists, and 7 rebounds when LeBron James is not there on the floor. His ability to raise his play to that of an All-NBA caliber player when there are All-NBA caliber players on the bench is second to none, and that's what makes him so good and deadly for any team. However, another deadly skill that he has is his ability to adapt. When these games where LeBron and Luka plays, he doesn't still try to be this All-NBA 28 point per game scorer that he is when they're not playing. He understands his role. He has times where he's looked to go in and run the offense because LeBron James is taking a sit. Luka is taking a break as well. And that's when it's his time to run the offense. But he can also be in the starting lineup with the likes of a LeBron James and a Luka Doncic and still be effective and a legit threat to the defense. Sometimes LeBron and Luka will just give Austin Reeves the ball and let him rock out and do whatever he wants to do. And Reeves' ability to just use his basketball intelligence and his ability to keep the Lakers afloat as the third seed in the West is phenomenal as well. The Lakers, after LeBron went out with an injury and with Jackson Hayes being in and out of the lineup, have kind of faltered a little bit, especially immediately after his injury. But after the past couple of games, Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic have been playing out of their mind. Reeves' ability to kind of form such a quick chemistry with Luka and be the leading Laker in terms of converting baskets off of Luka assists is second to none, and it's pretty phenomenal, especially because Reeves uses a lot of his off-ball movement and his basketball intelligence to do these things. Now, the next player who a lot of people would consider the actual best third option in the NBA is none other than Derek White of the Boston Celtics. Derek White has been a huge get for the Celtics, and ever since he was traded to the Celtics from the Spurs a couple years ago, he's been a pivotal piece of that roster. And this season is no different, as it seems like he is the perfect complementary piece for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown's already high production. He's scoring about 17 points per game on about 46% from the field and 40% from three on 7 attempts per game. You know how insane it is for a player to be shooting 7 attempts per game and make 40% of it? Those are the type of numbers that can shift the entire metric of the game. And we've seen Derek White do that countless times throughout the season and countless times throughout the playoffs as well, as he was a huge reason for the Celtics being able to win that title last year. However, it's not just the fact he can score the ball. His playmaking is elite as well, as he is averaging about 5.3 assists with a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. On top of this, he gives you high-level defense with 1.3 steals per game and 1.1 blocks per game, which is absurd for a guard and puts him in the conversation for one of the best defenders in the entire NBA. And with his elite play offensively and his elite play defensively, you could argue he is probably the best two-way player in the entire NBA. Now, I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying he has a pretty good argument for such. Now, going back to what he gives you offensively, I don't think there's a player who is more versatile in the NBA other than Derek White. Off the ball, he is phenomenal, as he gives you about 1.28 points per possession on spot-up opportunities on the offensive side of the floor, which is the 99th percentile in the NBA. However, as great as his off-ball movement is and how much it opens the floor for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown when it comes to driving lanes and whatever else they want to do on the court, he's also amazing with the ball in his hands, as he's going to give you about a point per possession with the ball in his hands in the pick and roll. This is phenomenal, and it also adds a lot of value to, not only does it take pressure off of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and gives him more leeway on the court, it speaks a lot to what he can do on the offensive side of the ball and how big of a threat he can be. And behind these two, we have a newcomer who is starting to cement his place as a top third option in the league, and that is none other than Evan Mobley for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Evan Mobley was drafted not too long ago, and he's still a young player in the NBA, but it seems like this season he has finally having his coming out party. He's averaging about 16 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks a game, which is good enough for 7th in the entire NBA. Evan Mobley's impact is far greater than him as a big man scoring and getting rebounds, getting extra possessions for his team. It's how great of a two-way defender he is, or two-way player he is for the Cavs, and it's a big reason why he is up for Defensive Player of the Year, especially considering that Victor Wembanyama unfortunately went out with an injury earlier in the season. It's looking like the Defensive Player of the Year award is Evan Mobley to lose. Now, nobody's overlooking Evan Mobley defensively. Like I said, he's top 10 in the league in blocks per game, probably even higher than that in terms of blocks on the season, and he anchors a 106.4 defensive rating, which is one of the best marks in the entire NBA. Nothing much really needs to say about how great Evan Mobley is defensively. If you watch the Cavaliers play, or you've ever seen Evan Mobley play, it's pretty evident of how great of an impact he has defensively. His ability to be switchable on the perimeter as long as he's not on a guard or a player that's too dynamic, and his ability to anchor down the paint and be able to challenge whoever goes at the rim is just something that's very critical and something you need for the playoffs when that time comes. However, a facet of the game that gets overlooked a lot, in my opinion, just because of how great he is defensively, is how amazing he is on the offensive side of the ball. Now, he's not as great of a player as some of the top players in the league, or even some of the third options I mentioned previously in Austin Reeves and Derek White. However, he's pretty good in his own right. Evan doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot, and he's been able to get his true shooting percentage up to 60%, which is pretty significant for a big man. And in that little 10 to 16 foot range from the rim, he's shooting about 40%, which is phenomenal for a big man, especially when that's where a lot of his shots are coming from. You couple this with the fact that he's shooting a modest 31% from 3, which is more than enough than you can ask for a big man, especially with somebody like him whose game isn't predicated on his threat from beyond the arc. It's pretty impressive, and it makes him very deadly on the floor. You couple this with the fact that he's pretty good as a pick and roll finisher, as he gives you about 1.18 points per game as a pick and roll finisher, well, per possession as a pick and roll finisher. It just adds to the value of Evan Mobley. And with the Cavs having an undersized backcourt, but two very impactful players in Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, it's nice to have somebody like Evan Mobley on the back end of the defense side of the ball who can also give you a boost offensively if those guys aren't having the best of games to kind of just rely on. Now, there are some other great third options out there in the NBA. I didn't even mention the likes of a Desmond Bane for the Memphis Grizzlies, who has been phenomenal this season, or Mikal Bridges, who has been pretty good in New York for the Knicks. But I just wanted to highlight some of the top third options in the NBA and kind of give my take on who I think the best third option in the NBA is, who, in my opinion, is none other than Derek White, just because of how great and how big of a two-way player he is in the NBA. It's different with someone like Austin Reeves, who gives you a big boost offensively, or somebody like Evan Mobley, who gives you a great boost defensively. Derek White is the good, perfect mix of this. He can defend your best player on the defensive side of the floor and come back on offensively and give you 20 points per game. But that shouldn't take away from the value that Austin Reeves gives to his team, Evan Mobley gives to his team, and the other great third options on these top teams as well. But this is just my opinion on the whole little third option, who's the best third option argument in the NBA. Let me know who you guys think is the best third option in the NBA below, and go ahead and explain why too. Make sure you leave that below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. But that's all I got. And until next time, peace.